Good evening. My name is Thomas Martin and I will be presenting over the case study for EDL 853. Just to begin, there was an incident that occurred at a football game for Nottingham High School. Their star quarterback had actually been tackled and suffered waist down paralysis as a result of the incident. The star quarterback's name was Miguel Hernandez, and the Hernandez family actually moved to Nottingham High School in order to have access to the resources, because Nottingham High School is notorious for its football team. So that's why they had moved to Nottingham High School. So then relevant data from the incident is just that a football injury occurred that resulted in Miguel Hernandez's waist down paralysis. So in the time between the incident and his return to school, there was a pre-meeting that occurred between Miguel's parents and the high school counselor, Ms. Gustman. During that meeting, the parents informed Ms. Gustman that the only thing that they felt that he would need as far as an accommodation upon his return to school is classroom access. So access to all of the classrooms on his schedule. So then 2 weeks pass from the time of the incident to the time of his release and release to return to school, and no communication had occurred since the pre-return meeting between the school and the parents. So then this is Miguel's first day back at school. He goes to an award assembly where the principal honors him for his dedication to the school and the football team. Then he goes to his first class where his teacher tells him that his schedule has been changed, and for his third period, he will no longer be attending biology, but will be attending another science course instead. The science course does meet graduation requirements, but it is not a college preparatory class. So he was previously enrolled in the biology course, which was a college preparatory class. And that's actually a recommendation of the university that he was already planning on attending, was that they wanted him to be taking that biology class. And he's still planning on attending that university even after the incident. So that has not changed. So he still does need that biology course. So when Miguel's family hears of this, his mom, Mrs. Hernandez, calls the school and schedules a meeting because she's not very pleased. She schedules a meeting with the principal because he has been denied access to the biology course. The parents Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez were not informed of the schedule change, and they demanded reinstatement to biology. So those were the things that were going to be discussed between the Hernandez parents and the principal, myself. So Mrs. Hernandez comes to the meeting. Approximately halfway through the meeting, Mr. Hernandez comes in with a lawyer, and she's discussed some of her concerns. The lawyer states that Miguel's rights have been violated, that he is being denied access to inappropriate public education because of his disability. So his presence there is just to ensure that Miguel's rights are protected. So moving on, analyzing the data and information needed. In order for the school to be, and this is just kind of ruling out some extraneous variables, in order for the school to be liable for the injury, then they would have to be proven negligent, which does not appear to be the case because Miguel was not suffering from a pre-existing condition that resulted in the paralysis and the tackle. So he was healthy prior to this incident, and as long as the equipment checks out as far as meeting guidelines, then there should be no liability resulting from the actual incident. Now, determining needs for services. So, how do we grant Miguel access? Like, what at this point, what are his needs? What are the services? What are the accommodations that he needs in order to have equal access to the curriculum? So, due to Miguel's limited mobility, certain services and resources will be necessary to ensure that he has equal access to a free and appropriate public education. The extent of these services is unknown at this point, just because we don't really know what is needed. He's paralyzed from the waist down. Are there any fine motor skill deficits? Are there would physical therapy be beneficial? So a lot of those things we don't have that information yet. And as far as physical therapy, I'm speaking from like through special education resources, not outside agency physical therapy. So the physical therapy needs within the school are a bit different than like the clinical setting, if that makes sense. So the synthesized statement that I formulated was, due to Miguel's physical impairment, he will need some additional accommodations, modifications, and possibly special education services to address his educational needs and provide him with equal educational opportunities. And here's just a quick review of the information that we've discussed. Football injury caused waist down paralysis for Miguel. The schedule was changed without parent notification or consent. The replacement class for biology was not a college preparatory class. The location of the biology class was the sole reason for the denial of access. So it was not wheelchair accessible. Options to consider. So I have three primary options, and there's some pros and cons with each of those options. So first, I'm just going to briefly discuss what each of the options are. So first option is me to develop a 504 plan. So this would allow certain accommodations to be implemented to provide him with access to the same education as non-exceptional peers. However, if some more significant impairments arise, then this is for the next option. I determine if a comprehensive educational evaluation for special education is warranted. So through special education, certain services and accommodations can be provided that would not be allowed through that of a 504 plan. But there are some cons associated with a comprehensive evaluation as well. And third, determine how to provide access to biology class for Miguel, given his current mobility concerns. Okay, I'm going to delve into the pros and cons of each of these options. So a 504 plan. This would allow for the various accommodations to be administered. However, it would not allow for the delivery of physical therapy services. So if it was recommended that he be provided with physical therapy, that could not be done through a 504 plan. It would have to be delivered through an IEP. So the physical therapist, he or she can consult with the 504 team to determine accommodations necessary for the student, but in order for Miguel to access educational activities. But he or she will not be able to provide those services without first determining if the student qualifies for special education. So, conducting a comprehensive educational evaluation in order to determine if he would be eligible for special education services that would then allow for the delivery of the physical therapy. However, this process will take a bit of time. It takes up to approximately 60 days. It doesn't guarantee that he's going to be determined that he's going to meet criteria for eligibility or require PT services in order to access. So it's kind of, there's a bit of a risk. You don't want to put all of your eggs in that basket. In case he doesn't qualify, then we have nothing to fall back on. So it is possible that those resources required to meet his needs are actually within the general education classroom. So at this point, the only thing really that we're looking at needing is access to that biology class. Well, this isn't really helping with that. So we're still not exactly addressing the concern from Miguel's parents at this point. So finally, determining access to biology. So this was my third option, was let's figure out how we can get him access to biology. Now this will require team input. Several options exist as far as how to provide him access, but they're limited due to my lack of knowledge of the school campus or budget. As I previously discussed, only a quarter of the high school buildings don't meet ADA accessibility standards. My concern is why. Like at this point, this is my presiding concern over everything, is why are we fitting Miguel into a certain 504 special education, whatever. He needs to be granted access to that course. And because this is for any student, there's nothing to say that we're not going to, Nottingham's not going to enroll another student that is in a wheelchair tomorrow. These students need to have access. And so that needs to be, the building needs to be 100% up to ADA accessibility standards. So there are some ways that we can look at providing that access to meet those standards. So I would consider providing access for Miguel to the biology class during the interim as video conferencing. So get him set up with almost like a Skype type of situation. Even provide a para for assistance. Next would be moving the classroom to an ADA accessible location. Is there anywhere that we can move the biology class that is actually ADA accessible? 75% of the high school campus is ADA accessible. There should be another location that we can move that class to. Or also making the classroom ADA accessible. We could provide a wheelchair lift. We could provide an elevator. All of those are options, but I can't speak to them because I don't know the budget of the school. So I believe this to be the most appropriate option, but I can't commit to it because I don't know the resources available. Therefore, we will proceed to the next slide with the best option for all stakeholders. So due to his current mobility status, he does not meet criteria of an individual with a disability. He does meet criteria of an individual with a disability, which would qualify him for 504. This is also the first prong of the eligibility determination for special education. So prong 1 for special education is, does the child have an exceptionality? Prong 2 is, what are the needs in the classroom? So that's what we need the comprehensive evaluation to determine, is what are the services required for this student to have access to a free and appropriate public education similar to that or equal to that of same age non-exceptional peers. Plan of action. I would meet as a team, so that team would include parents, administrator, biology teacher, nurse, school psychologist, and any professionals that the parent chooses to invite, such as the lawyer that was brought for the pre-return or for the meeting with the parents. And we would all be brought together to develop the 504 plan. I would also request consultation from a physical therapist to assist with the development of this plan. At the conclusion of this meeting, I would request for the team to proceed with comprehensive educational evaluation in order to determine special education eligibility. And I would continue with the plan for accessing the biology class by video conferencing or changing the location of the classroom. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.